you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Horse welfare and safety are of utmost importance where humans have any interaction with horses. Within the courses at International Horse College, we only utilise methods that promote safe and humane ways of interaction between horses and humans. We only support safe methods of educating riders, handlers and trainers about horse welfare. internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation 31352. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Miller, and happy to have Dr. Robert Miller back again. We had him a little while ago, and today he's going to talk to us about the 10 behavioural characteristics of the horse. I think he's very well qualified to talk about this, and you'll find out a little bit more about his previous chat with us on number 437. So just go to chat number 437 and find out a bit more, and then come along and find out more today about the 10 behavioural characteristics of the horse. How are you today, Bob?
Fine, thank you.
Look, good to talk to you again. Now, this 10 behavioural characteristics of the horse, I know you're well qualified about it, and I know that you've talked about it before, and you've actually got a book that's got this included, and we'll talk about the book and what you're doing there a little bit. But why this subject today? Is there a particular reason why you even started to study this subject and put it together?
Yes, while the horse has been my primary interest,
yes,
I've actually worked with every possible creature. I was a zoo veterinarian throughout my career and worked with every possible exotic animal, including dolphins and whales. I worked with livestock, pets, dogs, cats, birds, everything.
Okay.
And it was the fact that I'd only been trained in 6 domestic species, that made me have to do a lot of thinking and a lot of research, a lot of study, ask a lot of questions. And I finally realized that in order to understand any creature, including horses and including humans, you've got to understand the process of evolution and how nature equipped each species to survive in its natural environment, its primitive environment. And since I work more with horses than with any other animal, I was able to come up with these 10 qualities of behavior unique to the horse. And anybody that works with horses, professionally or recreationally, in order to do it effectively and safely and efficiently, they have to understand these 10 qualities.
No, that's good. That's good. And I think, a professionals training right through to, first horse owner or just starting, I think really good education for them. So can we start with the first one? Now, I've got them, so I'll go through them. Then if you're happy to talk about them, the first one we've got is the secret of flight.
Yes. Each species has several methods of defending itself, but there's always a primary method of defense. And so when you look at the anatomy of an animal, the secret to understanding its primary defense is in its anatomy. So, for example, if we look at a member of the dog family, wolf, and so on, the only weapon we see are the large fangs. And we correctly assume that that's primary defense. Look at a hedgehog or porcupine. Their anatomy is a clue to primary defense. Now, there's also secondary defense and tertiary defense. We look at cattle, buffalo, the bovine species. They're all prey species. They all have horns, and we can correctly assume that the horns are the primary defense. But they may choose to run, a secondary defense, flight. They may choose to hide, as a tertiary defense. So this applies to every single species, including our own, which I'll get to later perhaps. And in the case of the horse, when we look at the horse, here's a prey animal that doesn't have any horns, doesn't have a horn on its nose like a rhinoceros, and we study its anatomy. What we see is an animal whose primary defense is flight. The horse is a sprinter. And the other 9 characteristics I'm going to give are all secondary to that primary defense of flight. They all relate to it.
Okay. All right, the next one is the secret of perception.
Yes. In order to run away from danger, you must be uniquely perceptive to see and sense danger. So therefore, the horse has the same 5 senses we do: the sense of vision, the sense of hearing, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, and the sense of taste. And with the exception of taste, the other 4 are all involved in flight. When the horse in the wild state hears something, sees something, feels something, smells something that it is unfamiliar with, its response is to run away from it. It runs what's called flight distance, which is usually slightly farther than the primary predator can run. In the case of zebra, for example, they'll run 400 to 500 yards because that's the way they outrun the lion. Of course, they're related to the horse. They're a flight creature, too.
Yep.
So the horse is uniquely perceptive. They see things, hear things, smell things that we humans cannot.
I think this explains, a lot of the time people might say the horse did it for no reason, but if it's able to sense things a lot more that we can't, it's not for no reason. It's just a reason that we don't understand.
Exactly. I've heard that happen. I've heard that said thousands of times for no reason.
Yep.
He started the buck. He spun. He ran away. He did this or that. He kicked. There's always a reason. And that's why it's so important for us to understand the perceptivity of the horse.
Yes.
They even read the position of our body, our position of our hands, the expression on our face. They're so perceptive.
Yeah. All right, the next one, number 3, is the secret of response time.
Yes, if you're going to stay alive by running away, you've got to move very, very
Yes, you
quick.
have. Yes.
The horse has a remarkably fast reaction time, much faster than the human, because we are not a flight species. A house cat can outrun an Olympic sprinter for short distance. We are not a flight species. We don't stay alive by running away. Primitive human beings had other methods of defense. But the horse, because it's a flight species, has extremely fast reaction time.
Sometimes we cringe almost, that the horse can shy so quickly and can react so quickly, but this has helped them through evolution. And if they weren't able to, then we wouldn't be able to enjoy them today.
Exactly. And of course, one of the reasons they're such a valuable species is because of the qualities we're talking about. That's why they're effective at the racetrack, and they were effective in warfare and hunting.
Yes.
Because of their reaction time, because of their perceptivity, and their flightiness.
Yep. Now, the next one is one that's interesting as far as training horses goes, because it's the secret to rapid desensitization.
Yes. If you're going to stay alive by running away from any stimulus, that you are not familiar with, any movement, any sound, any feeling, and you're not familiar with it, and that's going to stimulate instantaneous flight. So that's what triggers the horse's flight. Mm-hmm. And so they have to be able to detect that and respond to it with amazing speed. So it not only makes the horse so useful to us, but it also makes the horse potentially dangerous.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
If a creature stays alive by running away from anything that it is not familiar with and knows is not dangerous, mm-hmm. that means it would be running all the time. There would be no time to eat, to drink, or reproduce.
Yep.
But the horse, if a stimulus which is frightening does not harm it and it's repeated, it mm-hmm. will desensitize to it where it's absolutely indifferent to it. That's why horses were so useful in warfare, because the sounds of battle, which are terrifying, they soon learned it's terrifying, but it doesn't hurt me. And from now on, I'm just going to ignore it. Mm-hmm. And that's what the horse can do. And that's so important in training, that as long as it doesn't cause pain,
yep.
The horse can be desensitized amazingly rapidly if you present it properly mm-hmm. and causes no pain to the horse, no matter how loud the sound, no matter how frightening the visual object. The horse will desensitize to it and become absolutely indifferent and oblivious to it. And it's one of the great secrets of horse training is that this is possible.
Yeah.
The reason it's possible, people say, oh, that sure must be smart. That has nothing to do with it. Nature has equipped the horse to become very rapidly desensitized to any stimulus as long as it doesn't cause pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one is the secret of learning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have thought that once you understand about the secret of desensitization, you can sort of have them hand in hand with the secret of learning. Is that right? You know, do they go together about the desensitization and the learning?
Well, yes, that's a learning procedure, is desensitization. The technical term is habituation.
Okay.
And if presented properly, I want to repeat it, if presented properly, the horse will habituate remarkably speed. The problem is that we humans, since we have different qualities of behavior, impatience being one of them, we sometimes cause physical discomfort, pain, in our training procedure, and that is a negative effect on the horse. Mm-hmm. Now, also, some traditional human methods of training horses picked up on this. So, for example, in the American West, the cowboy method of starting horses includes what they call sacking out. Mm-hmm. And that is confining the horse where it can't run away. It's in a small pen or it's on a halter, tied and immobilized. And you wave a blanket over its back. Well, at first, it's terrified. It thinks it's going to die. Mm. And you do it again and again and again and again. And somewhere, if it's presented properly and causes no pain, somewhere between 30 and 50 of those stimuli with the waving blanket, the horse will start to relax and eventually will become absolutely indifferent to it, and they never forget that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's a part of horse training that's very important to understand.
Yep.
That when we present anything new to the horse, it should be done gently and repetitiously mm-hmm. and not cause physical discomfort, pain of any kind.
Yep. So if we can talk a little bit more about this secret of learning. So you've got the, habituation, but what about teaching? Because I can understand that when they're introduced to a new experience, that it should be a kind experience, a kind where they're not hurt in any way. What about the novel experiences that they have?
Well, the most popular term, at least in our society, in training horses in a gentle and effective way, is to say pressure and release. You cause pressure, and then you release it to reward the horse. I prefer the terms comfort and discomfort, because comfort can be severe or just very slight, and discomfort can be severe or very slight. So I think if we think in terms of comfort and discomfort, we can much more effectively understand how to train the horse. So to give you an example of teaching a green horse to pick up its foot, so you can work on the foot. Obviously, a lot of people use forceful methods, but it's not necessary. You can just cause slight pressure in the fetlock area until the horse picks up the foot, and that's discomfort. It's not pain, but it's discomfort. And then instantly reward by removing the pressure, giving the horse comfort. Not a lot of comfort. It's not like a food treat.
Yep.
But it's comfort, and it's just a question of time before the horse, when the fetlock is pinched, picks up the foot. Now, does that apply to all 4 feet? No. Each foot has to be separately handled and trained, because the horse cannot use the power of reason that we have and say, it doesn't hurt on the left forefoot. I guess it won't hurt on the right forefoot. That's human reason.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. And, I'm trying to work out why some trainers are really good with this and some trainers aren't. But if they've got a thorough understanding of these, the behavioural characteristics, then that's going to make them a better trainer.
Yes, and as I say, because we respond in a different way, our primary defense is different. We're a different species, and we use the methods that are natural to us. They're sometimes very unnatural to the horse.
Yep.
So we have to learn. We have to learn to speak the horse's language. So much horsemanship is brutal and unnecessarily aggressive, and the horse does not. What his brain says is run away.
Yep.
But the horse is also a highly adaptive animal, and so these methods work. They're a very forgiving creature. Having seen horsemanship all over the world, I've seen some excellent things, and I've seen some horrifying things.
Okay.
And that's because the horse is a forgiving creature, and even though we can use terrible methods, the majority of horses learn.
Okay. What about the memory? We've got number 6 is the secret of memory. What can we learn about a horse's memory?
Yes, it's the best of all domestic animals. If you're going to stay alive in the wild by running away from unfamiliar, frightening stimuli, and conversely, completely ignoring those you've become habituated to, have learned through repetition that they're harmless, even though they sound bad, look bad, you learn that they're harmless, and you just ignore them. That's it. I'll give you an example that I have seen in Africa.
Please. Yep.
I've seen a pride of lions lying in repose in the midday sun, just resting, and a herd of zebras a little over 100 yards away, grazing. They know the lions are there.
Yep.
Then one lion gets up and stretches. All the zebra pay attention. The lion walks away casually in the opposite direction. The zebra go back to grazing. But if the lion stares at them, crouches and stares, off they go. That creature has provided that quality. So that applies to what we're talking about in the case of the horse. Learning. Now, if you learn, I'll give you an example common in the western United States, tumbleweeds. the first time a foal sees a tumbleweed rolling before the wind, that's terrifying. They don't understand it. But eventually, it's part of life, and they absolutely ignore it. What if they go to a different location for the next 15 years? Then they brought back and they see a tumbleweed again. Oh, the brain says, I remember that. It looks bad, it's scary, but it doesn't hurt me.
Okay.
They never forget. Horses have an incredible memory. They have to have. If you're going to stay alive by running away from danger, you better have a good memory. And those horses that did not have a good memory did not survive to reproduce.
Yes. Okay. What about short-term memory? Is that as good as the long-term memory? You know, like they remember something years later, like a tumbleweed, that it's not going to hurt them, but short-term memory, I've heard that's a little different. Is it different, or they can remember?
It all depends upon the speed of learning.
Okay.
Yes, the short-term memory is as good, but it's a question of the speed of learning and how it's presented. So much in horsemanship of the first experience is frightening.
Yep.
For example, sometimes it's the first time a halter put on a horse. A halter. The horse is frightened, unfamiliar. It looks strange. It feels strange. And the human responds by putting pressure on the horse, causing discomfort. The horse will never forget that. Now, you can overcome it. That's what we do mostly with horses. We overcome bad behaviors, but we shouldn't have established those bad behaviors in the first place.
Okay.
If we went about things properly.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com. What can we do then to stop the bad behaviour? You know, like, because things like a farrier, a farrier can be good or bad, a dentist, a vet, different examinations. What can we do? Horses can be touchy around the ears or touchy around the flanks. Is that because they've had bad experiences and they remember them?
The bad experience doesn't mean pain necessarily. As I said, if you take a horse that's not been handled, and you his face abruptly, it's uncomfortable. It's not painful. Uncomfortable. But if instead of abruptly touching, if you move slowly, allow the horse to touch you first, then smell your hand until relaxation occurs.
Yep.
Then gently touch. Then you can slowly slide your horse towards his eye or towards the ear.
Yep.
Along the neck, and gradually desensitize, habituate, as I said, is a technical term.
Okay.
And as a veterinarian, so much of what we do is uncomfortable to the horse. But I found that using this technique, I could teach horses to accept all kinds of procedures. Can I give you an example?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, please.
Yeah. For example, I was going to say tube worming, but that's just obsolete now. We don't worm the horses that way anymore. Let's talk about floating the teeth, something that often has to be done annually with many horses. What I would do is I would take, first with my hand, and teach the horse that I can rub under your upper lip, which is a pleasant sensation to the horse. Then the gum. Then touch his tongue, just gently stroking with my finger. I put a few drops of honey or syrup on my finger. And that scared me, but you know what? It tastes good. So they're used to it. Then I take the float, and I put a little syrup or honey on the float, and I present it to the horse's mouth, gently, very gently. Finally, I go back to the molar teeth. Once he's accepting it, I go back to the molar teeth. And I don't use the blade of the float. I use the back of the float and gently stroke the teeth. Now, it's still psychologically uncomfortable, but horses like to be stroked, and they like the taste of the sweetness. So after several minutes, it depends on the temperament of the horse. This can take 2 minutes or 10 minutes.
Sure.
The horse, I can tell by his facial expression and his head position, says, that scared me, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And once he likes it, I turn the float over and gently start to float the teeth ever so gently. This whole thing may take me 20 or 30 minutes. You say, well, how can can't get paid for taking that time? No, that's true. But if I'm going to be doing that horse annually for the next 20 years,
yes,
it's going to pay off. The last day of my practice that I retired, one of my calls was at a warm blood stable where I didn't float teeth, but I used the same method for warming, passing a stomach tube up with a nostril. I used the same method of training.
Mm-hmm.
It may take me 20 minutes to teach the horse that I'll not hurt you and this is not uncomfortable. But I went to the warm blood stable that I've been treating for years, the horses there, and I tube wormed 98 big warm blood horses without using a twitch and without tranquilizing a single horse.
Yep.
I had one horse that just come in from New England, and I did have to tranquilize that horse. Mm-hmm. But I did 98 horses. That paid off for the time I took years earlier training the horse. It helped build my practice. People appreciated the fact that I didn't charge for the training period. I was doing it for myself. I would often ask, are you keeping this horse? Oh, yes. Yes. This is my
yes.
body. But if they said, no, he's going to the other part of the country, then I wouldn't take the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I couldn't afford to.
Sure.
But it greatly enhanced my practice, and I actually enjoyed working with horses like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about the secret of memory, or we move on to the secret of dominance hierarchy?
You can move on, but before, let me just say that
Sure.
some of my videos show this procedure.
Yes.
How I start get a horse used to a tube going up its nose,
mm-hmm.
or a dental float into its mouth, and so on. Now, injections, they always cause pain.
Mm-hmm.
But so you can't tell the horse that this is not going to hurt, because it does. But there are other methods, that I show those in my videos, but you can't do it with injections. So
okay.
What's next?
We're going to talk about the secret of dominance hierarchy.
Yes, creatures that live in groups.
Yep.
Not all creatures do. Some animals are primarily loners.
Mm-hmm.
For example, with the exception of the African lion, most cats are loners. That doesn't mean they can't get along with their own kind, but they don't need them to survive in the wild. So most cats are basically loners, except, of course, when they're mating or reproduction,
mm-hmm.
with the exception of the African lion, which is a herd creature, a pack, I should say.
Okay.
So herd creatures include all members of the horse family, the zebras, donkeys, horses. It includes dogs. It includes the relatives of the dog, the primitive relative, the wolf, the coyote. These are all group creatures, and so are we.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean there's a few hermits around that want to be alone, but they're the exception, not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Humans, if you study primitive human culture, we are definitely group creatures. So that's true of the horse. Now, group creatures have different ways of communicating and of establishing the order, the hierarchy. It's called the dominance hierarchy. Who is in charge and who's the follower? Who's the leader and who's the follower? And each species is completely different how that's accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about horses. Horses establish their dominance hierarchy, that is their order of leadership by control of movement of the feet. The feet are the primary defense in the horse. And so if you watch yearlings play fighting, you'll see that they rear up and they paw at each other, and then they reach down and try to bite the legs.
Okay. Yep.
What are they saying? I take your feet away from you. You lose the ability to run away. I'm in charge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You need me. And this is true to almost every creature that I have worked with, is that, so to use an analogy, the dog, primary defense is the teeth. The dog who is submissive lays down, rolls over, exposes abdomen, saying in effect, go ahead, kill me, I won't defend myself. You're in charge. You're the boss.
Okay. Okay.
So when we control movement in a horse, that's how we establish our role as a leader to the horse and not as an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about horsemanship, the use of hobbles, putting horses in chutes, confining horses, just tying them up, but using round pens for training where they can't run in a straight line away from us, that controls the horse's mind and establishes our role as a potential leader.
Okay. Okay. Now, you talked, when we did the secret of dominance hierarchy, about control of movement when you talked about the yearlings, and is there anything else there to say? That's number 8, the secret of control of movement.
Well, we humans have many methods of controlling movement in a horse. One is confinement in a very small space. We have training methods, the Western United States, the traditional cowboy method of tying up one hind leg. We call it a Scotch hobble, tying up hind leg, or hobbling front feet, or the methods that were made famous by horsemen like in John Rarey in previous centuries, the Ohio horseman who eventually went to England and performed his horsemanship for the Queen. His method was the use of a hobble, tying up one front leg, making it a 3-legged horse. And the horse's mental attitude is, I've lost a leg. I cannot defend myself. I'm going to die if a predator shows up. I need help. And the only thing to help him there is John standing in front of him. Has an enormous psychological effect. So much. Now, you're familiar with the natural horsemanship movement here.
Sure. Yep.
Yes. So much of that natural horsemanship movement involves simply control of movement. Putting the horse on a lunge line, for example, but round and round and round. Controlled flight. That's prohibiting blind, straightaway flight from the horse and establishing our dominance over the horse. That's just one example.
Yep. So if we're talking about control of movement, I suppose that's also the lateral work as well.
Yes.
Control of the hindquarters. Yep.
Absolutely. If we effectively teach the horse to respond, move where we say, when we say, and the rate of movement, how the speed of movement is under our control, that establishes our dominance on the horse. The word dominance, unfortunately, is often interpreted as cruelty or aggressiveness. It's not necessarily true, because throughout history, there have been cruel, dominant leaders, Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, and so on and on. And conversely, there have been powerfully dominant individuals who taught gentle kindness. Jesus Christ is an example. So dominance does not require aggressiveness and cruelty.
Yep. Okay. The secret of body language now.
Yes, each species has its own language, and obviously it's different from the language that we use.
Yes.
And if we want to get along with another creature, we better understand its language. Working with horses since I was 15 years of age, I was a veterinarian for many years until the natural horse movement began. Started by Tom Dorrance in the northwestern United States and picked up by many people like Pat Pirelli, who took it to Australia.
Yep.
And yes, we have to understand the horse's body language. So, for example, I knew from childhood when a horse lays its ears back, that's an aggressive.
Yes.
But I was middle-aged before I learned from Ray Hunt, Tom Dorrance, Pat Pirelli, that the horse's licking and chewing is a sign of understanding and acceptance. I didn't know it. Nobody told me.
Yep.
And I didn't put it together. And I realize now that that's a very important thing for us to understand, that when the horse licks and chews in response to our training efforts, that is favorable.
Yes, you can see why it's so important for anyone to learn the body language of a horse and all the signals that they give, and the ones that are unique to horses.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait, can you hear anything? No? That's because we're waiting for someone with a good quality horse product to be advertised here. If that's you, then contact us, horsechats@horsechats.com, and we'll send you the details. Thanks. All right, look, the last one we've got is the secret of precocity.
Yes, the horse is a precocial species. That means it is born with all of its senses working. It can see, hear, smell, feel, just as it can when it's mature.
Yep.
And its learning capacity is not only as effective as when it's older, but in some regards, it's most effective right at birth. Those are precocial species, most characteristic of flight species, of prey species is what I meant to say.
Yep.
Prey species. So, for example, it was the term imprinting was coined by Konrad Lorenz, an Austrian scientist in 1935, working with geese. Geese are a prey species. So are chickens, turkeys, quail. By contrast, hawks, owls, and eagles are predatory species. They are hunters. The prey species, their young, when they come out of the egg, in the case of birds, are precocial. They instantly see mother. They instantly latch on to her, are immediately programmed to follow her and trust her because that's their best chance to survive. And so in the case of geese or swan or ducks, they will even follow her into the water as precocial species. Now, in the case of mammals, we're talking about prey species, cattle, sheep, goats, horses. Prey species would be cats and dogs, for example.
Yes.
We are a predatory species. Our babies are not precocial. They're completely dependent on mother.
Yep.
She has to defend them, and their learning capacity is extremely limited. It grows the older they get, the better it gets. That's very different from the horse, who is precocial. I don't know if I have time to tell you the incident that made me keenly aware of this.
I think tell us now that you've started. I think you tell us. Yes, please.
Okay, I was between my third and fourth year of veterinary school, the year before I graduated. I worked for ranches every summer, worked with horses, because that's what I like to do.
Yep.
And I was coming in at the end of a day down a cliff and a steep trail. And off in the distance, out on the flats, I saw 6 Mustangs, wild horses. And as I picked my way down this steep thing, they were unaware of me because the wind was coming towards me, so they could not hear me or smell me. And I was too far away for them even to really see me.
Yep.
And then I saw one mare, obviously in advanced pregnancy, leave the others and go towards the bottom of that steep hill I was coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And she lay down, and I stopped my horse. And I suspected she was going to go into labor. I had worked with foals, newborn foals, as a vet student,
mm-hmm.
and worked as a ranch and farm hand. But I'd never seen a foal actually born. So I stopped to watch. And I saw the mare go into labor. About 20 minutes later, the foal came out. Eventually, she stood up, started to lick the foal. I paid attention to it. The afterbirth dropped out. And then I realized the sun had gone down and it was getting dark.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get home, back to the ranch headquarters. And besides, I was ready for dinner. So I started back down the trail.
Mm.
Well, she heard me first. She looked with anxiety up and down the trail. Then she saw me. And her response, unfamiliar stimulus, was instantaneous flight back to the other 5 horses.
Yep.
The foal, which was standing, was still in a very wobbly state. And my first reaction was, she's leaving the foal behind.
Mm-hmm.
But the foal had an instantaneous adrenaline reaction and took off, not keeping pace with the mare, which it could do by the second day, but bouncing, just bouncing along and keeping right alongside the mare.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, isn't that amazing? It's only about 20 minutes of age, and it can actually keep up with mother.
Wow.
Many years later, I never forgot that, but it made me appreciate the precocity of the horse.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Before we start to talk about your book, which I know covers the subjects in a lot more depth, but imprinting, just go over the imprinting and how soon it should be done and what we can do here.
Well, the imprinting period
mm-hmm.
is the period of time that the baby, whatever creature we're talking about, sees who's caring for it,
mm-hmm.
usually the mother.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the mother. In the case of the man who coined the term imprinting, Konrad Lorenz, in Austria, in 1935, he was dealing with geese and didn't realize at that time that it applies to mammals as well.
Mm-hmm.
But social species that are born, that as soon as they see what moves around them, they instantly lock onto it, follow it, and trust it.
Okay.
Now, most of the time, it's mother, whether it's a goose or a mare. It's mother, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I've actually seen foals imprinted on a tractor because as the foal came out of the mare, a tractor went right past its nose.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a ranch in Argentina.
Yeah.
They had 13 tractors on the ranch, and only that tractor, the foal would follow it and nicker when it heard the engine.
Wow.
It was imprinted.
Yeah.
I learned that by handling the foal proper handling, which I can't get into here, but I've done both a book and video on this procedure.
We can get you back another time to talk about that if you'd like. That would be really good.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. But I did my own foals. Once I learned about this, I did my own foals for 3 years. And then I introduced it into my practice. And when I'd get called to do what's called a postpartum exam on a newborn foal,
mm-hmm.
they were often sometimes as old as 10 or 12 hours because I was busy.
Sure.
But sometimes I was there within an hour. And I would handle that foal. I won't go into the details, but I being a veterinarian, I concentrated on future desensitization to make that foal a good patient.
Mm-hmm.
I had 100% success with it with my own foals and then with my clients' foals. And then I wrote some articles for Western Horseman magazine. And eventually they wanted me to do a book on it. And the book started, it's available in half a dozen languages now. And the method is now in use all over the world, although not by everybody by any means. But it met with tremendous resistance at first because it was not traditional
Yes.
to work with newborn foals. But everybody that's tried it and done it properly gets great results. So the opposition has faded away the last few years.
Okay.
But I went through a lot of criticism back in the 50s and 60s with this method. But anybody that's tried it and done it properly knows that it's one of the most effective things that you can do. So I've raised mules as well as horses, and my mules are, at 91 years of age, I'm riding a 31-year-old mule that was born here. I imprint trained, and she is absolutely as close to...
Wow. That's great.
What they call bomb-proof. There's
Yes.
no such thing as a completely bomb-proof equine, but she's as close to it as they come.
Yeah.
I can do anything with her.
That's good. Very good. Very good. Now, just going back to this, just understanding horses and the behavioural characteristics. If people would like to know a bit more, because we've just touched on each of the 10 today, how can they find out a bit more about getting the book that's got a lot more information in? How can they contact you?
Yeah, well, www.robertmmiller.com.
Okay, yes.
robertmmiller.com. You can get all the information you need out of that.
Sure.
Done actually 3 books on imprint training and 3 videos, but I only recommend one of each because I learned a lot as I went through the years.
Okay. And those details also will be on horsechats.com/Robert Miller or else horsechats.com/Robert Miller 2. And we'll have all those contact details about how you can contact Dr. Robert Miller and how you can get a bit more information from his wealth of information. You know, he's been a vet and been working with horses majority of his vet life, and you know, he's speaking, he's lecturing, he's just doing everything, writing books, getting DVDs, and I'm sure you'll be able to get some more knowledge from him if you'd like to contact him about that. All right, so thank you again, and I think we already decided on a topic for the next time, so we'd love to see you again and look forward to catching up again soon.
Well, thank you very much. I hope what I said will help some of the people who work.
I'm sure that everyone will find a lot of information about that, for sure. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.